This week on the Salesforce Admins podcast, I'm talking with Alexis Kingma from the Salesforce Certification team about the newly refreshed Salesforce Certified Platform App Builder exam. We're going to get into exactly what changed, why Flow now has a bigger role on the exam, and where Agentforce fits into the app builder skill set. So whether the Platform App Builder is your next certification, or you just want a better sense of where admin skills are headed, this episode is worth a listen. Now, before we get into it, be sure to subscribe and share it with any other admin who's thinking about their next certification. So with that, let's get Alexis on the podcast. So Alexis, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I am a huge fan of our exams and certifications. And, you can take one, you don't have to have the other. And I like to have both. But I love that we have a lot of exams and we redo them, we update them, we refresh them. At least we try to. I feel, the product now is changing super quick. But before we get into all of that, Alexis, tell us a little bit about your history and how you came to Salesforce and what you do at Salesforce.
Absolutely. So I am on the Salesforce Certification team. We are a team of Salesforce employees who are solely dedicated to creating and updating the whole suite of Salesforce exams. So historically, I come from a certification industry background. I've done software certification my entire career, and I came to Salesforce about two and a half years ago and just hit the ground running. I joined the team updating and creating new Salesforce certifications. So I actually started with the Tableau certifications and have since kind of moved over into my latest, which is refreshing the Salesforce Certified Platform App Builder exam.
Oh, yes. App Builder. That's something all of us admins are near and dear to our hearts on. And that's cool. I mean, I guess there's enough tech out there in the world that there's enough people that need to write certification exams for all of it. So, wow. This is one of those ideas of, I bet 20 years ago, that job maybe didn't exist, but it exists now.
It's funny. Certification is such a rich industry. It's one of those jobs that I feel like nobody knows it exists until you have that job. Nobody grows up saying, I want to write tests, but now it's all of our favorite things to do.
No, you're exactly right. Like nobody sits down and what do you want to do when you grow up? And it's, I want to sit down and write really hard software questions for people about a cloud-based platform that they can configure declaratively. I think if you would have answered that, your teacher would have been, and you're an astronaut today.
But it is interesting, like the same principles that we use to write Salesforce software certifications are the same principles that are used for the medical boards, for firefighting certifications, for airline certifications. And so when we come together at certification industry events, it's a whole gamut of, industries coming together to talk about the same certification principles. So you get to meet a lot of interesting folks.
I mean, you don't ever think of that, but that is really, wow. I bet that's really interesting to sit across the table from people that write certifications to be a rocket scientist.
Absolutely. Yes. A lot of these certifications, like for a professional roofer, that's a high stakes certification, or an architect.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear how all these different industries approach the same problems.
Yeah. Well, we're still high stakes too. Let's talk about, so you mentioned Platform App Builder exam. It got a refresh, which it's probably needed. I mean, every few months, right? But I think before we get into that, what does it mean to refresh an exam?
So the Platform App Builder exam has been around for over 10 years. It predates me at Salesforce by far. We're actually in our 11th year this year, which is awesome. And so it's been around for so long, and the role changes and evolves so much in that time. And so it's important for us to look at the role, look at the requirements in the industry. What are admins doing? What are app builders doing? What are architects doing? What is the most important knowledge that those roles need? And how does our exam align to that? And making sure that the things that we're testing on the exam are actually things that are the most important for these roles in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, that was always one of the hard parts. I remember when I first got one of my certifications. At the time, we didn't use a lot of Service Cloud, Agentforce for Service, I think now. But I had to go out and learn it because it was part of the certification. And I thought, oh, why should I have to learn that? And I thought, well, just because you don't use it or your company doesn't use it doesn't mean it shouldn't be part of that that certification as well, or that exam.
Absolutely. And so when we approach doing a refresh like we did with App Builder, we try to include subject matter experts from a whole range, internal Salesforce employees, external Salesforce users,
Mm-hmm.
a wide breadth of roles, admins, people who are solely app builders, architects, to try to say, okay, Salesforce might say, these topics are most important, but what is the industry saying is most important? If somebody's looking to hire an app builder, what does that person expect the app builder brings to the table? And what knowledge should they already have when they start the job? And so we rely on our subject matter experts to say, what are those most important concepts and how do we make sure that they're reflected on the exam?
Makes sense. I mean, you really that's the part of getting dialed in to me that I think is the most important. Is one thing for Salesforce to think this is important, but where does that fall in terms of your responsibilities and what you're seeing day to day? Well, let's talk about this new exam because Platform App Builder, I believe if you said it was been around for 10 years, then I've been at Salesforce when it was launched. What did it originally, not originally back in the day, have, but what were you refreshing from and really refreshing to?
The biggest thing, I'll say the biggest change between the previous version of the exam, which had been refreshed maybe 1 or 2 years ago, to this new version of the exam is really increasing the emphasis on flow on the new version of the exam.
Mm.
In talking to our group of subject matter experts, hearing from the community, we were just continue to hear flow is such an important piece of being an app builder and being able to do that role, that it needs to be tested. And we actually added it to the exam with quite some depth. Not only testing, can you create flows? Can you choose which flow for which situation? But also, can you troubleshoot flows? Can you maintain and monitor them? Really asking the app builder to get deep into flows and making the assertion that flows are a key piece of being an app builder at Salesforce.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. It's funny. I'll ask you later, but I'll be curious to see your answer on it. I mean, when I think of app building, it's a collection of stuff, and then there's that automation piece, but also, really diving into flow like you did really helps set the admin up for being an agent builder as well, right?
Absolutely. And that's another change we made to the exam is adding Agentforce, specifically how you can use Agentforce as an automation tool on the exam. So I don't want to say, you must be an Agentforce super user to be able to take that exam. That's absolutely not the intention. We have an Agentforce specialist exam for that. But really just more about knowing that Agentforce is a tool in your tool belt that's available and when might it make sense to reach for that tool.
So I'll come to that question now that I get asked, and you can decide if you want to answer it or not. But I was asked last week, do admins still build apps?
Yes. I'll say from what I've heard, yes, we, as part of this refresh, go through the roles that this exam most aligns to,
Mhm.
and Salesforce admin was the number one. So when we got our group of subject matter experts together and asked who is taking this exam, who should be taking this exam, at Salesforce admins was the number one thing that people said.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's interesting to live in the time we do now where, I mean, I had somebody send me a link the other day of a dashboard that an agent had coded for them. And, it was kind of temporary. It wasn't meant to be any kind of source of truth, but when you think about it, sometimes the permanency of the app, I think that's where that question was going, and I still very much believe that it's the agent that jumps in and adds the additional layer that perhaps goes across apps.
Agree. I hear from our community over and over that knowing how to get in there and actually build the flows and customize and all the checkboxes and what they do and what they mean and what they cause is so important and continues to be important even with the new agentic world that we live in.
Right. And you mentioned part of the refresh process is also gathering a lot of feedback from not just admins, but customers and employers that hire admins. What were some of the things that they pointed out as admins still need to understand these things? Like, you refreshed it for Flow and Agent Force, but that's not the whole exam, right?
Correct. And you'll see, it's funny, we still kept Salesforce fundamentals, we still kept user interface. And the funny part is that I was actually looking at much older versions of this exam through this refresh process. And those are the same topic areas that have been around, I don't want to say since the first version, but that have been around since the beginning. And it's because they continue to still be important. Every refresh, we pressure test and say, okay, do you still need to know object record and field access? Do you still need to know reports and dashboards? And the answer continues to be yes. And so those will continue to live and be tested on this exam because they continue to be important.
Yeah. Now, from your advice, if a Salesforce admin's listening, maybe they don't have a certification yet, or they haven't taken any of the exams, what would you advise in terms of preparation to get ready for this exam? Can they come out of the gate and take it, or is there kind of understood prerequisites to this?
All Salesforce exams are designed to test your hands-on experience. And so they're designed so that, yes, you can read documentation, but they're testing that you have some hands-on experience going into the exam. But that said, that's where Trailhead becomes a huge asset if you may not have had access to actually get into a sandbox and play around with all these different topics. So exciting for this refresh, we created a brand new exam prep trail. We had existing prep trail badges before, but those have been retired in favor of this new exam prep trail. And what's most exciting is it does prioritize the hands-on badges available on Trailhead. So there's opportunity within each section to get in there, spin up an org, and actually play around with the types of topics that are being tested on the exam. So if you don't have the opportunity to get hands-on experience with every single thing tested, this trail is an excellent opportunity to still be able to prepare for the exam and take the exam regardless.
That makes sense. I mean, I think that's always the biggest question I get asked when I'm at user groups or at an event is, what should I do to prepare for this? And it's one part just learning. You don't want to study for the test, as they say. You want to study to learn it and understand it. I think that's why the practical hands-on part of it, like really what can they build, is important.
And I'll say, too, a tip that all of us on the Salesforce exam development team share when we can is every exam, this one included, has the exam guide. And there's really a lot of information and clues within that exam guide. We list all of the exam objectives, what we call them, all the different content areas tested on the exam. And they're really written very intentionally and with a lot of detail in mind. So thinking about, if an objective says create and configure flows, we're not just asking you to describe them or have a high level understanding of what they are or when to use them. We're really asking, can you get in there, get your hands dirty, create and configure them? And so that's kind of a clue. Hey, I should be getting in there. I should be clicking around. I should know what each of these buttons, each of these checkboxes does, because that's the kind of question that's going to be asked on the exam. Whereas something like describe or understand, maybe that is more of a high level, just, hey, can you explain or describe, but maybe not necessarily get in there and do. So I think paying attention to that and can help direct how you study for each of these objectives.
Mm-hmm. One thing I thought of, and this was back when I was getting my admin certifications, was describing the value of it to my manager and to my users. And I won't tell you my answer because I want to hear your answer first. But if you were to put yourself in the the seat of a Salesforce admin listening to this podcast, it's like, I really want to go and take that exam. I really want to get that certification. How do I justify that, or how do I make that case to my employer and to my users that this is worthwhile and worth my time?
It's such an important question, right? Because that's the big question is, how can I get buy-in to study for this, to get support to take this? I think the biggest one is that a certification at its core is a validation of knowledge. A certification is a statement that you possess the knowledge and have the skills and abilities that are tested on this exam. And so for Platform App Builder, these are the knowledge, skills, and abilities that not only Salesforce, but the industry in the group of subject matter experts that helped develop this is what the industry is saying is most important for an app builder to know and be able to do in the market right now. And so by earning the certification and saying, hey, I have the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are most important for an app builder, you're bringing a lot of value to your team. You're bringing a lot of the learning that you gained through studying. You're bringing a lot of expertise to your team to be able to bring back and show what's the latest and greatest that Salesforce is doing now, and actually be able to implement it.
Mm-hmm. No, spot on. I would also just add one word: confidence.
Yes.
I walked on water the day after I passed my admin certification, because I finally felt like everything that I thought I knew was verified. I don't know what the right word is. Verified comes to mind, but it's probably not the right word. And I was like, yes, that feels right to me. We talked about the prep trail, which I think is important because, boy, for a while there, preparing for a certification was reading some sample questions and, hoping you kind of had your bases covered. I think that prep trail is really, really good to help get you hands on. Now, I'll say this because I think I know the answer, but I want to make sure. Even if I complete that prep trail, that doesn't mean I'm going to pass the certification exam, right?
I'm so glad you asked.
Yeah.
The prep trail is one piece, but I think, there's no guarantee, to be honest. There's no way to say with 100% certainty, I will pass this exam. I think the prep trail is one piece. Like I mentioned, the hands-on component or experience is really important. And so in addition to the prep trail, I think the best way to assess your level of readiness really is to go through that exam guide and those objectives on it and just kind of do it a little self-test. Hey, let me read this objective. Is this something I'm familiar with? Do I feel like I can kind of explain what this means and explain how I do this in my day-to-day? Or is this something I need to take a second and read some help documentation and get a little bit deeper on? So I think those two things combined, the prep trail and the exam guide, are your best bet to make sure that you're ready. But it is definitely not a one-for-one, and no Salesforce certifications are finish the prep trail, pass the exam. We want to add a little extra rigor.
Yeah. Well, and that makes sense because I feel when you complete the trailhead module, that the exam should test on, okay, so you knew the answers. Did you know why those are the right answers? And I always felt like the exams pushed that limit for me because it was one thing to know what to do. I think it's another thing to know why to do it.
Absolutely.
We'll talk about one thing in general, and then we have Dreamforce coming up. In general, I'm a Salesforce admin. I listen to this podcast and like, you know what? I got the green light. I'm going to go get my app builder exam. What should I bring? What do I bring do I go to a testing center? Can I take it at home? How should I do that outside of just the regular preparation part?
We offer a lot of flexibility in this process. So it's totally up to you if you prefer to go to a testing center or if you prefer to test at home. I know for me right now, looking at my desk, there's 6 drinks and about 1 million Post-it notes. And looking around my office, I'm embarrassed at the state. So for me, I typically go to a testing center because when you take the exam at home, you are asked to make sure that your workspace is clean, your cat's not walking in like mine just did, all the things. So you have the choice to take it at home or in a testing center. If you do take it at home, I just encourage everybody to run through the system checks that are part of the Pearson exam process. That will just make sure that your computer is able to take the exam. Some work computers or VPNs can need to be shut down first. So run those system checks, read the information that Salesforce has on taking an exam. Or if you go to a testing center, you'll show up to the testing center, bring your ID. Salesforce has documentation on both that will make sure that you're ready and have exactly what you need either way. But we offer our exams almost any time, any day. So you can, when you go to register, obviously testing centers have hours, but there's a whole breadth of days and times available for you to choose to take your exam. Yeah, so you can sneak it in before Dreamforce.
There you go. I mean, I really admire the people that take it at home, and I know some people just have to logistics wise. For me, I can get into the mindset of I'm here to take this exam if I have to go somewhere. I think it's the whole process of getting up, getting outside, having to go to a location. It feels very purposeful. And then I guess because of that, it keeps me focused, right? Like I don't feel like, okay, well, it's 2:15. I guess I'll take the exam now. It's like, nope, my appointment's at this time. I got to leave early. Got to put my shoes on.
I agree with you, but I'll say the other side of that coin is that the stress of, okay, now I have to fight through traffic or I have to wait on transit and then I have to show up and hope that the check. So I think offering both is a huge benefit because it totally depends on each individual person.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I asked that because I also wanted to kind of sneakily, if that's a word, work in the fact that you can get your certification at Dreamforce if you attend, correct?
Correct. We are very excited. Salesforce certification will be on site at Dreamforce. And really exciting, not everybody, I think, realizes who attends Dreamforce, but everybody who attends Dreamforce gets one complimentary certification exam while they're at Dreamforce. So a huge opportunity there in having a free exam that you can take on site and actually earn a certification while you're at Dreamforce.
Wow. And that's not just limited to App Builder. It's any of our certifications.
It is any of our certifications, including the architect certifications, which is exciting.
Wow.
And I will say, just a shameless plug for everybody listening to, if you're interested in taking an exam at Dreamforce, I highly recommend adding that exam session to your agenda. That way, that secures your space to take an exam at Dreamforce. Otherwise, if you don't have it added to your agenda, you'll have to show up in the standby line, which we ask that you join an hour before the exam. So
Woof.
it saves, yes, we get very crowded. So it saves a lot of time to add this exam session that you'd like to attend to your agenda. We have them Monday through Thursday to make sure that you're prepared and you have a spot to take your exam.
I mean, why you would leave Dreamforce without one more certifications beyond me.
Especially when it's free.
I mean, it's part of your ticket. Like, I also get, you could fail. I will say this, there's been exams that I've studied for and went in and failed, and that's okay. I mean, it just helped me really understand what I had digested and understood, and the parts that I think I had glossed over or maybe felt I had understood. And that the exam brought that out and told me that, like, no harm, no foul if you go to take an exam and you don't pass. Like, the expectation isn't that you'll pass or fail. It's that it tests your knowledge. And I think for me, leaving and having that understanding of, okay, I passed, great, but did I feel good about how I passed, or should I really keep going to build on that knowledge? Or maybe I didn't pass, and you know what? Now I have an inventory of where I can pay attention to and gaps in my learning.
One of the certification developers on our team, Melanie, always says, we don't use the word fail, we use the word learn. You didn't fail, you learned. And I think that's absolutely how we approach it. Failing is not a failure. It doesn't mean you don't know Salesforce, you don't know your job. It's a learning opportunity. And we tell you the areas to work on in the exam results. And it's just one more opportunity to learn and dig in and try again.
Yeah. That's a very positive note. I want to ask your advice. I mean, as somebody that has been writing software exams and helping people understand, what is, in your opinion, one method or one tip that you give people in terms of how they should approach preparation for this and preparation for other exams?
The biggest one is what I was alluding to earlier about really paying attention to the level of knowledge or skill that the exam is asking for. Is it asking for you to be able to do that thing? Is it asking for you to be able to troubleshoot that thing? Or is it just asking you to know and have awareness and be able to explain it? Because when we're writing exam questions, that's what we're looking at to write our questions is, do these questions need to be, to the depth of somebody who's actually configuring and troubleshooting, or is this just more, let's test on the awareness? So that's always my biggest tip. And then I will share my own personal tip when I take an exam is I sit down and I take 3 deep breaths before I get started. And that's always helped me. So that's my more practical logistical tip.
Yep. Calm and center yourself.
Yes.
Be present where you're at. And sometimes I'll be honest, sometimes that's the best part about going somewhere, is it's always nice and quiet, and it's very easy to just stay focused because of it.
Absolutely.
Alexis, I think we covered a lot. I'm excited for the refresh. I think, I know our admins will be, and our architects and developers. I mean, App Builder is applicable to a lot of people in our ecosystem, not just Salesforce admins. But I love that it got refreshed and really reflects what the product can do and where the product is, and also what admins and app builders should think about. So thanks for coming on the podcast and sharing that with us.
I'm happy to be here. I am so excited. Like you said, this exam is applicable to so many people and so many roles. I heard so many times throughout working on this exam from folks saying, this is my favorite exam because it's just so relevant and applicable across the board. So it was such a blast to be able to work on it. And I'm super excited to hear the feedback, hear from folks who take it and pass it. I hope to hear from everybody on LinkedIn after they pass. So super excited to have this out in the world.
I want to thank Alexis again for joining us and giving us a look into what's changed with the Platform App Builder exam. I think this is a big takeaway for admins, as certification is more than just knowing the features. It's about validating that you can apply those skills in the real world. So from flow and configuration to understanding when tools like Agentforce make sense. Take a look at the exam guide, get hands-on, and use those objectives to figure out when you're ready and where you can learn more. And of course, if this episode helped you, be sure to subscribe, share it with another Salesforce admin, and until next time, we'll see you in the cloud.